People know I'm a wrestling fan, and I've been a wrestling fan since the '80s, and every now and then the name Chris Benoit will come up, and on the most recent, not the most recent, one of the most recent WWE events where they have fans virtually attending, a fan put up an image of Chris Benoit. And every now and then a fan will yell out Chris Benoit, and it gets censored out by WWE, and uh, the Benoit thing is a tragedy on a level that maybe wrestling fans don't understand. And I just finished the two-parter Dark Side of the Ring about Chris Benoit. Now, I didn't watch it until now because I felt like, well, I lived through that. I remember that. So it's probably not going to tell me anything I don't know. Like, I've watched a lot of the Dark Side of the Ring ones now. And I'll be honest, a lot of it, again, because I've been a wrestling geek and I've been, on all the wrestling dirt sheets since the late 90s. I remember when the Montreal Screwjob went down, and that was when the dirt sheets on the internet became a huge deal. That was really the driving force. Was, hey, okay, so now we know there's stuff goes on backstage. Here's these sites where they're getting leaks from wrestlers on what's really going on and what they really think. So at the time that the Benoit incident took place, the dirt sheets ran with it, and this is what they do. They run with it, and it became this sensationalized thing. And WWE decided to air a special, and it's talked about. And I remember this. Remember, they aired the special, the 3-hour, memorial for Chris Benoit. We didn't know. We didn't know, it hadn't come out in the media yet what had happened. We just knew that he and his wife and his son had passed away. And so it was a big deal. Then by the next day, we knew what had happened. So the next morning, it all came out like, oh, here's what really happened. And TSN, who had WWE's rights at the time here in Canada, decided they would not air a replay of that special. So what they used to do is they'd show Raw on Monday, and then Tuesday afternoon they'd show it again, which was great because there were times where I would have to work really early in the morning. I wouldn't be able to stay up late to watch Raw, so I would just skip spoilers on the internet, and then I'd watch it Tuesday afternoon, provided I was home early enough. And so, that was great. But TSN took a lot of flack. There were a lot of wrestling fans that were really mad that they decided not to do the replay. I remember reaching out to Michael Landsberg, who had talked on the air about we're not rebroadcasting. He took a lot of hate. There was a lot of heat from WWE fans. They're like, no. You need to show this again because you guys always do the replay, and we think Benoit needs to be remembered. And TSN said, no, we're not replaying it. We're not going to do it. So I actually emailed him and I said, I admire TSN for standing their ground, and I understand you're getting a lot of hate right now, but I wanted to let you know from one viewer that I understand it. And he emailed me back personally and said, I appreciate that. And yeah, we're getting a lot of heat right now because we won't show it again. But I feel like we have to stand our ground on this and say, no, we're not broadcasting that again. And then after that, all of this other stuff came out, and it all kind of mixed together. The idea that, yeah, he had 10 times the level of testosterone that a normal man should have in his body. So clearly he was taking a lot of steroids. And this is where it starts to come out that wrestlers, well, they're taking concussions all the time. So CTE, and I've talked about this on the Hockey Channel plenty. We're going to talk about it a little bit here. And that with CTE, which comes from repeated blows to the head, there are probably a lot of ticking time bombs in the locker room at that time. And he had the brain of an 85-year-old man when they looked at it. So, and again, the problem with it is this. On some level, when you say, well, he had CTE and he was on this and he was on it on some level makes it sound like you're excusing what he did. So that's why it's fine to have all this background, but what he did was so thought out, and it didn't just happen. It's not like it was a passionate moment that something bad happens and he goes, oh crap, and then it all escalates. This happened over days. This was over days, and he was having conversations on the phone after his wife had already passed. So this is an absolute perfectly understandable stance by WWE. But one thing I learned in this special that I didn't know was WWE made no attempt to reach out to Nancy's family. They didn't reach out to Chris's family. They didn't reach out to anybody. They just, okay, that's gone. We can't mention his name on the air anymore. We'll pretend he never existed, which I understand, but I mean, on some level, it kind of pushes everything under the carpet. And we see them doing it now just when wrestlers leave. And it seems so petty that a wrestler leaves the company and goes work somewhere else, and now you're going to wipe him out of existence? Like The Shield, which now is just Seth Rollins until Roman comes back. And then, okay, it's Seth and Roman, and there was some other third guy, but we don't acknowledge his existence. So it's become a thing now where they just decide to wipe wrestlers out. And it's really, really odd. Now, I've got names on the board because there were a few things I wanted to cover. And that's why I have a whiteboard and write on it, because there are notes that I want to tell people. And I want to remind myself. And then people go, oh, Shannon wrote on a whiteboard. I wonder what's up there. It's really my notes so that I don't miss stuff. I still do. Hockey Channel, I miss stuff all the time. David Benoit has been through hell. And, you know, that kid, when he says, I still see my dad as a hero, as my hero, and he's got tears in his eyes, I feel that. I feel that this kid, you know, his dad did this horrific thing, and to him, that's still his father. And, you know, I commend David Benoit for that. I know he got kind of blackballed. I would imagine if he ever actually got a job in WWE, if he ever went into wrestling, the first thing that he'd get told is, you can't use that last name. But the other thing is, he looks so much like his dad. The facial hair is exactly the same. Everything is exact. So I can't see WWE giving him a legit chance, which is wrong, right? He didn't do anything wrong. He's not part of it. This isn't sort of you don't pass on a psychotic break from one family member down to another. Not like this. This is not. So I really came out of this feeling bad for Benoit. I have to say, too, I feel bad for Nancy's sister, Sandra, because she's clearly been through hell, and what she's been through, not really talked about a whole lot either. Not really. I hadn't even seen her before this special. I didn't know who she was. So that's bad on me for not following Talk as Jericho the whole way through, because right in the middle, and it's intentional that he's right in the middle, is Chris Jericho. I have always been a fan of Chris Jericho. I have always thought Chris Jericho was one of my all-time favorite wrestlers, he and Bret Hart. And it's not just because they're Canadian, which helps, but Jericho always seemed like a great guy. He always seemed like a genuine, great guy. And the fact that he put these two people together, the fact that after Benoit's passing, he was one of two people, Chavo Guerrero, I believe, being the other, who actually reached out to Sandra. That says a lot, because again, you know, I've heard of this with wrestling before, that they just kind of they're done with you. Okay, you're off to the side, done. Thanks for your career-ending injury. Too bad, so sad. Out you go. And I understand that to some people that might be just that's how life works. That's how jobs work. But with wrestlers, they really do sacrifice their bodies. They do. And I had considered putting on a board the names of every wrestler who passed early. It is a stunning number of wrestlers. It is part of the reason why I try not to watch old wrestling matches and old pay-per-views, because it turns into they're gone, especially from the late 80s, early 90s. It is absolutely, it is something that just kind of rips your heart out when you look at it like this. They're gone. You'll watch a tag match and go, 3 of those 4 guys have passed away since then. And they weren't very old. You know, I may be older than a lot of these wrestlers who've passed on, and that feels wrong. And I will say this, after this took place, and it very nearly destroyed the industry, probably for the right reasons, WWE has banned chair shots. Fans weren't happy when they banned chair shots. fans were quite ticked off about the whole banning of chair shots, where they're like, oh, come on, you can't, come on. One guy goes off and now you can't hit a guy in the head with a chair. And watching that special and seeing at the end where they show all these chair shots, it made me wince. It made me say, holy crap, I used to watch this. I used to cheer those chair shots. What the hell? And so they absolutely made the right call. And the question then gets asked of why they allowed the chair shots. Does that come through ECW? Is that something that's just, passed along through these backyard wrestling, extreme wrestling companies? And there are still companies that allow chair shots to the head. There are. And honestly, after watching this, yeah, that any company that watches that two-parter and then says, we'll still allow chair shots to the head, I don't know what to say. It was a day that really changed the wrestling world forever. And no, he doesn't belong in the Hall. So the question gets asked, should he be in the Hall of Fame? No. The tragic part is Nancy should be. Nancy Benoit, I remember when she was woman in WCW, and I remember when she managed Flair. It didn't last for a very long time, but I remember when she managed Flair. And I remember thinking, this is the first time they've had a woman with Flair, and she's his equal. Now, they had Baby Doll there for a while, and Baby Doll, I think, was with Flair very briefly. I remember it was a whole Jimmy Garvin thing. I remember thinking at the time, I really hope they give the title to Gorgeous Jimmy Garvin, and I really hated Ric Flair, which is what you were supposed to feel. But Woman was fantastic. I didn't like the name Woman, but I thought the character was good. And I thought once they got her away from Kevin Sullivan and they made her more of a character, I thought that worked. And I honestly think that at some point she should be in the Hall. I agree with Chris Jericho on that completely. But sadly, because of how she passed, I don't see wrestling ever putting her in. And for people watching this who may be too young to remember that era, it was completely different. And the next episode's all about New Jack. Now, I was never a New Jack fan, so I'll try to get through that one, but I was never a New Jack fan. I remember there was some ECW. I would watch ECW, and some of the stuff I really enjoyed, and other parts of it I'm like, this is just crap. I sort of agreed with Jerry Lawler when he would start putting down ECW. I was like, I don't really like Lawler. I know he's supposed to be the heel, but he makes some points. There were some great wrestlers in ECW, but a lot of them, they used the hardcore element to cover the fact they weren't very good technical wrestlers. And the guys who were good technical wrestlers, WCW and WWE would pick them up. The other guys stayed there and put each other through all the tables and chairs and flaming tables and barbed wire tables and everything you can imagine. But, I mean, there were good wrestlers there as well. Bubba Ray Dudley is one that stands out. And I know now he's Bully Ray. To me, Bubba was a guy who never really got his due in my eyes. I thought when he was in WWE/WWF and they split him and Devon, I thought, this is pull the trigger on it. Give Bubba Ray at least a run with the Intercontinental title. Give him a run with the US title. Give him a run with something here. And it didn't really happen, and then you put the Dudleys back together. But outside of that, a lot of the ECW guys, and I love Tommy Dreamer. Dreamer was never really a guy that you'd throw in a ring for a 60-minute match. He was your hardcore guy. That was what he did. And, so it worked in ECW, and it didn't go over as well in other companies. Al Snow, though. Am I right? Al Snow was fan-flippin-tastic. Loved Al Snow. Once he got the head gimmick, done. Leaf Cassidy was a terrible character, but Al Snow, the head gimmick, was just absolutely glorious. And the Job Squad. The Job Squad was great as well. But again, I may be talking to people who don't remember that era. But there were some great moments in that era, and there were some awful ones. And those chair shots, yeah, I know one instance is Mick Foley, and thank God Mick Foley's still with us, considering the punishment he put himself through. The Mick Foley, The Rock, I Quit match, and you see the chair shots in that, and the brutalization that his body went through. And if you haven't seen the movie that gets into Jake Roberts and the Mick Foley and all of the Terry Funk and all of the stuff that goes on in the wrestling world, It's very, very eye opening. So is the Wrestling with Shadows Bret Hart special as well, which was the movie that was made, the documentary on Bret Hart. And I know that there are still people in the wrestling world that don't like that the curtain got pulled back and we get to see what's going on backstage. But I would think that if we didn't, if they'd managed to keep kayfabe and all that, I would think by now wrestling wouldn't have died out, but I think we would have lost interest in a lot of it. And I think with some of the behind the scenes stuff that we've seen since then, I think it gives us more of a view of how things work. The problem, of course, being sometimes then as fans, we can say, oh, we're better than the bookers and all that. And I know I've done it. So for anybody says anything, I know I've done it, but I try not to do it too often. There are times where it's like I don't understand what they're thinking here, but like a giant spider. But anyways, yeah. I think WWE and wrestling in general is better off now than they were, and it was the absolutely horrendous incident that took place here that started us down that road. So my heart breaks for David Benoit, for Sandra Toffoloni, for what they went through, and for the fact that they kind of felt abandoned after. And my heart breaks as well for anybody who was affected by all of this. And to Chris Jericho, the guy went from being one of my favorite wrestlers to just being an absolute flat out hero of mine. And just how genuine and how fantastic he is. It shows in everything he does outside of the ring, and it is inspiring. It really is. He's a fantastic guy. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below as always. And again, for fans who want to throw out the name Benoit and throw out pictures of Benoit, I think it's really disrespectful to Nancy. I think it's really disrespectful to David, his son, who's still out there, and to the families of those who went through hell. I mean, I understand people think they're trolling, that they're trolling Vince McMahon, but you're trolling the memories of those people too. So it's really, really, it's not cool. All right, thank you guys so much for all your support. And like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And once I'm done looking at this series, there's a good chance, I've got some wrestling books here, there's a good chance I'll do some wrestling history videos as well, because it does occur to me that having watched wrestling since the 80s, there might be some stuff I've seen over the years that I've wanted to talk about, like certain events and stuff, that I haven't. So there you go. Thanks again for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.